For your viewing pleasure, this broadcast of the Municipal Council meeting of Alpena is made possible by the funding provided by the City of Alpena. Thank you for your generosity.
Good evening and welcome to the Alpena City Council meeting of October 2nd, 2017. This evening, I'd ask that you please join me in a moment of silence to acknowledge the horrific tragedy in Las Vegas, however you see fit. Thank you. Call the order, please.
Johnson?
Here.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Nowak?
Here.
Sexton?
Here.
Walagora?
Yep. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There's a couple of modifications to the agenda this evening. Greg has a ad that came in. He'll explain later, but it's a bid for the boiler. Mike will explain later. It's a bid for the boiler that came in. Should probably add that after. So it's 11A2.
Correct.
Bill, you asked to remove the closed session?
Yes,
correct?
that's correct.
We'll remove the closed session. They cover it.
So moved.
Second.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Nowak?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yes.
Walagora?
Aye.
Johnson?
Yes.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes for regular session of September 18th, 2017, and closed session of September 18th, 2017. Any issues or changes? Citizens appearing before council on agenda and non-agenda items are allowed 5 minutes each to address your concerns. If you'd like to do so, please come to the podium and state your name. This is the only time during tonight's meeting that you'll be allowed to address council. On the consent agenda this evening, A is bills to be allowed in the amount of $392,824.79. B is the approval of a budget amendment for the new election equipment in the amount of $7,000.
Will we approve the consent agenda as presented?
Second.
Nowak?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yes.
Walagora?
Aye.
Johnson?
Yes.
Nielsen?
Yes.
A couple of announcements this evening. A is the intergovernmental meeting on October 5th, 2017 is at Long Rapids Township Hall at 7 p.m. And B is the Halloween trick-or-treat hours are 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. on Tuesday, October 31st of this year. Did you have anything, Karen?
No. Those were the
I don't know if
two.
you want to expound on
No.
I have one proclamation this evening. Pardon me. It's a proclamation declaring October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas domestic violence is a serious crime that affects people of all races, ages, gender, and income levels, and whereas domestic violence is widespread and affects over 4 million Americans each year, and whereas 1 in 3 Americans have witnessed an incident of domestic violence, and whereas children that grow up in violent homes are believed to be abused and neglected at a higher rate than the national average, and whereas domestic violence costs the nation billions of dollars annually in medical expenses, police and court costs, shelter, foster care, sick leave, absenteeism, and non-productivity, And whereas only a coordinated community effort will put a stop to this heinous crime. And whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month provides an excellent opportunity for citizens to learn more about preventing domestic violence and to show support for the numerous organizations and individuals who provide critical advocacy services and assistance to victims. Now therefore, I, Matthew J. Walagora, by the authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Alpena, do hereby proclaim October 2017 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Alpena and urge all citizens to eliminate domestic violence from our community. Further, I reaffirm the commitment to the city of Alpena to reducing violence in our homes as well as on our streets. I urge all citizens to participate in the activities planned by domestic violence agencies, programs, and community organizations during this month. Citizens should also take this opportunity to educate themselves about the impact of domestic violence in Michigan and to become familiar with resources and programs available. This month, let us remember the victims of domestic violence, celebrate the survivors, and work together to eliminate violence from our community. And tonight we have Katie Conklin, the Executive Director of Hope Shores Alliance, and the guests.
Bill wants to get it, so move forward.
Get it in. As they perform my.
We're good.
Put that in there.
Public hearing, so we're to report of officers. We have bids. First one is Evergreen Cemetery Garage Repair.
On September 12th, the city received and opened proposals for the Evergreen Cemetery Garage Repair. The project includes repairs and maintenance work to the existing maintenance building located at Evergreen Cemetery. Bid documents were sent to various firms and plan rooms, with one proposal received as follows. Meridian Contracting, and there's a base bid plus a number of alternates. A copy of Meridian Contracting Services proposals attached outlining the proposed work. The city also requested prices for the 7 alternate work items related to heating and electrical efficiency and building aesthetics that are included in this proposal. Funding has been established in the general fund for this project in the amount of $55,000. After review of the base proposal, alternates, and available funding within the cemetery department budget, I would recommend the attached budget amendment be approved to transfer money budgeted for cemetery road paving in the amount of $7,350 to the building improvement budget line, allowing for some of the efficiency alternates to be included. It's my recommendation as city engineer that the project be awarded to Meridian Contracting Services for the proposal base bid plus alternates 3 through 7. Totaling $62,448, and we'll have to re-budget next year for the available funds to finish the balance of the siding on the building.
You remember that?
I will do my best. Sticky note.
Yeah.
So, Rich, just a couple of questions. I'm assuming the one bid, obviously, it's workload with all the other contractors that you sent this out again for the fall time. I'm assuming that the work on this building is going to have to start within a 10-day. I didn't get a chance to read that.
No, actually, they have until June 1st, 2018 to complete it. So there is a window of opportunity for them to do it.
Okay.
Either starting this fall and working through the winter, or through the winter and into spring.
Okay, all right. And how many people actually attended the pre-bid walkthrough?
Mike, do you remember how many people?
Just Meridian. Okay. All right. Thanks, Rick.
Rich, are we not improving the road, or did we just have a surplus in that line item, or?
Priorities. The roads in there, we can delay that out until next year. Actually, there was zero funding. That was money carried over from last year, but we're going to redirect to this. as a higher priority project on the road paving, and then we have money budgeted next year for road paving.
Thank you.
Didn't we start that road paving project though a couple years ago? Did we?
We
some
do
of
it every couple of years. We try to put $10,000 in every other year if at all possible.
Thank you.
Karen, did you want that line item included as part of that, the changing of the?
You can include the budget amendment with this if you'd like.
Okay.
Do you have a comment there?
I do not. No, I was actually just going to say that I don't.
Okay. That was his comment. Let's see. I move that we award the contract to Meridian Contracting for the services for the proposal base plus the alternates 3 through 7, totaling $62,448. I also move that we transfer $73.50 for road paving to the building fund?
Building improvement.
Building improvement, thank you.
Second.
Sexton?
Yes.
Walagora?
Aye.
Johnson?
Yes.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Noah?
Yes. They gave him till June, that's reasonable.
Okay, and the next one is the bid for the boiler, which was an addition, so we each have a packet in our hands.
Thank you.
Mike?
Well, first off, thanks a lot for including adding this to the agenda tonight. I was really glad that we were able to get this put on the agenda. Just a quick note, the wastewater plant boiler, they're in place, and a lot of the piping and stuff is well underway there, and for me, it's a work of art. I go in there and take a look at the buildings and just see the piping, and Linecroft is doing a fine job with that. Materials are ordered for public safety and should be on site soon, and that should be going on with the second floor VAV project. On September 26, 2017, the city received and opened bids for the City Hall boiler replacement project. Bids were posted on the City of Alpena website, and with 3 bids received, 2 from local firms and 1 from out of Alpena County. Bids, which included 2 alternatives, ranged from $67,048 to $69,599. The base bid and alternate M2 are the required items to complete the boiler replacement. In review of the base bids with alternate M2, prices ranged from $62,500 to $65,649. We budgeted $64,000 for the 2017-2018 year to complete this project. The scope of the project is to remove the existing boiler and install 2 high-efficiency boilers and to install new zone valves on the existing hydronic heat located throughout the building. The existing boiler and zone valves are 25 years old and have outlived their life expectancy, with some of the zone valves not working properly. This results in additional use of energy, resulting in higher utility bills, comfort issues, and overall building performance. Sweet Heating and Cooling, located in Glennie, Michigan, is the lowest bidder with base bid and M2 for $62,500. Lakeshore Plumbing and Heating is the second lowest bidder with the base bid and M2 for a total of $63,058. Lakeshore Plumbing and Heating is a local business located in Alpena County. Therefore, local bidder preference policy was reviewed. And speaking with Tom McMillan, owner of Lakeshore Plumbing and Heating, he agreed to match Sweet Plumbing and Heating bid price with local bidder preference applied. It is my recommendation as Assistant City Building Official that we award Lakeshore Plumbing and Heating the contract for the City Hall boiler replacement project at the price of $62,500, which includes alternate L2.
So that
No
works.
comments.
Pretty straightforward.
That's pretty straightforward, well written.
So you ready? I move we award the bid to Lakeshore Plumbing and Heating at the low bid of $62,500.
Second.
Walagora? Johnson?
Yes.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Noah?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yes.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for getting that. Thank you. Into tonight's agenda. I was told. Next on the agenda is communications and petitions. We have Sheriff Kieliszewski from with an Alpena County Jail presentation.
I want to thank you before I get started for giving me the opportunity to speak with you in front of you today. It's also nice to have my older and bigger brother here as well to back me up. I say older, although if you were to look at the color of our hair, I would probably lose on that.
Well, that takes care of one of my questions.
He did. Rich, did you jinx this on me?
Oh, there goes it.
So we'll go through photographs. You guys can look at the photographs, and as we're going through the photographs, I'll go ahead and speak at any point in time. If you have any questions, feel free to ask those questions, and I'll answer them. All of you know that the original jail was built in 1956 at a cost of $145,000. When it was built, it had a maximum capacity of 30 inmates. At that time, the life expectancy of the jail was 30 years. The original footprint of the jail was life expectancy was 30 years. It is now 61 years old. We have a lot of issues with the exterior of the building. You'll see in the photographs walls cracking and falling apart. You'll see in some of the photographs, you have one in your brochure, a hole that's in one of the exterior walls. And in talking with contractors, the only way that you can repair that particular damage to that wall is to tear the wall down to its foundation, find out what's going on with the foundation and replace it. The problem with that particular wall is that's where the inmates are, and there's a bunch of rebar in that wall itself, so it'll be an extremely difficult job. We have leaking roofs. At one time, the county spent an awful lot of money to repair the leaking roofs, and for a while it did work, and now we're back to leaking roofs again. One of the things that we're hearing quite a bit of is the county maintenance and how poorly the county maintenance has done in keeping the jail up to snuff, and that couldn't be further from the truth. The county maintenance department has done an outstanding job with trying to keep the building in good repair. My staff as well have been doing the best job that they could to keep things in good repair. We have lots of interior conditions or problems with interior conditions. The technology back then wasn't, there wasn't very much technology back then. And when you compare that now, we have a ton of technology. I have cameras throughout the jail, and to run the wiring for the cameras, we had to put conduit up throughout the jail itself, run the wires through the conduit. We have the capability now of having, with the inmates, kiosk in the cells, where if the inmates wanted to visit, they could do video visitation right in their cells. That would prevent my staff from having to remove the inmates and bring them up to the visitation booths where the inmates can visit with their family and loved ones. The neat thing about that technology as well is if you were an individual out watching Johnny play soccer or baseball, and unfortunately one of your loved ones was incarcerated, with a smartphone, you could get on your smartphone and show the loved one inside the facility some of the game. We've got a lack of storage at the jail. Currently, I have equipment stored all over the county. I've got my boats that are stored out at the airport, have additional equipment stored at the fairgrounds, so if we had to access any of that kind of stuff in a hurry, it would take us a while to run out to these different places to grab it and then to get into, take it to where it's needed. We have safety and health issues, not only for my staff, but for the inmates. We have a huge, because of the poor ventilation that we have in the facility, we have a huge issue with mold and mildew. Your building inspector was over at the jail because of a complaint not too long ago from the inmates regarding the mold and mildew. We do our best to keep that taken care of with Clorox and bleach and washing it down, but because of the poor ventilation that we have, it just comes back. It's a constant battle for us. We have high benches in some of the detox areas. The problems with the high benches is right above one of them in the detox, we have a ventilation unit. We've had inmates try to hang themselves from the ventilation unit. We've had inmates who are intoxicated, who will walk on top of those benches, fall, and injure themselves. As a result, we have medical costs to deal with. And you saw some of the photographs where we have cramped working spaces for my correctional staff. We had an addition built onto the jail itself in 1970. That addition was a gymnasium. We're required to erect the inmates, both exterior and interior. We don't do any exterior recreation of the inmates right now because a few years ago we had an inmate try to escape. In fact, did escape. Luckily, we caught him. It was during the day, and we heard him on top of the roof, and were able to catch him as he jumped off the roof. To prevent anything from like that from happening, we don't allow the inmates out in the recreation yard. In the mid-1980s, another wing was added, another 40 cells, another 4 cells that could house 40 inmates each. Our total capacity back then was 70. We've got a contract now with nursing staff for providing inmate health care, and we converted one of the cells to her station. So our maximum capacity at this point in time is 69 inmates. The demographics from back in 1957 compared to today have changed considerably. When I first started as a deputy working the road, it was very unusual for us to house females. We just didn't do it. More and more, we're housing women, and when you have some of them that don't get along, we are forced to remove them from a cell, a 6-person cell, and put them into another 6-person cell. So we might have 2 women in one cell and can't use 4 beds, and an additional 3 inmates in the other cell. So it makes it real difficult for us to be able to do anything in regards to that. I think that you'll agree with me that back in 1956, the offenses that we witnessed are a lot different from what the offenses we're seeing now. Recently, unfortunately for the Alpena area, we've got a lot of individuals who are manufacturing meth. We've had one individual who was incarcerated who was an escape risk. We received intelligence from listening to phone conversations of his and reading his mail as well, that he was in fact planning an escape at the jail. We looked into that for quite some time to make sure that it was legitimate. He and his wife was out. She was also has been arrested. Was out on bond for the same offense, and their plan was to drive a car into our gymnasium for him to escape and get help. That individual, because of the concerns that we had, we transported him down to Midland County where he's incarcerated. His wife was arrested and interviewed. Actually, her bond was revoked and interviewed. We had concerns because of threats to the judges as well, to one of the judges. We took that seriously and forewarned the judge about what was taking place and made arrangements to keep him safe and his family safe as well. We're seeing more and more situations with the Department of Corrections. The Department of Corrections is the one that actually
sentences inmates. So they have sentencing guidelines and scores that they put on each of the inmates, and that goes to the judge, and based on those scores, the judge sentences the individual to a particular, whatever time they're going to have in prison. The Department of Corrections is tweaking those numbers quite a bit, and what we're seeing is more and more inmates coming into the jail. Where before they would go to the state prison, now they're coming into the jail. So we're seeing the Department of Corrections really starting to change things and make it more difficult for us. Their numbers are decreasing if you look at the state prison population, while county jail populations are increasing. We also have issues with the construction of the jail, with it being linear, basically a big box. We have 2 wings. My corrections staff have to be within sight and sound of all the inmates. Because of the construction, the way it's constructed, and the staffing levels, it's not possible for us to do that. This isn't, talking about a new jail isn't something that has just happened. We've been talking about this for a number of years. It's not something new. Based on that, last year I wrote a letter to the National Institute of Corrections and asked for assistance in doing a jail feasibility study. Because of the political situation in Washington, it took several months for them to reply, and I really needed to get moving with this project. So we contracted with a private organization to come in and do a jail feasibility study. A committee was formed, and the committee started out initially as a small committee, but as the word got out, more and more people became interested in it, and we're close to having 40 people on that committee. The committee was charged with several things. First thing that they were charged with was to define the role of the jail in the local criminal justice system. Interviews with officials and committee discussions identified the varied roles that the jail plays in the local criminal justice system. The size and condition of the current jail imposes constraints. The condition of the current jail was examined in detail, and the facility is not in compliance with many national minimum jail standards. Recent crowding prompted implementation of statutes that resulted in the early release of inmates and sentenced offenders. The second thing that the committee was charged with was to explore the jail population characteristics. Data was analyzed regarding gender, length of stay, charges, and other characteristics. In 2016, the 70 inmates who spent more than 90 days in jail accounted for over half of the beds used during the year. Inmates are spending longer time in confinement and pose higher security risk than in the past. At the same time, over 60% of the persons admitted to the jail are released within 3 days, but account for less than 3% of the beds used. The third thing that the committee was charged with was to analyze trends and project needs. Statistical forecasts suggest a slow continued growth that would increase jail occupancy by 20% in the next 20 years. Added growth is expected from state policies that limit the use of state prisons for some offenders. The fourth objective that the committee was charged with was to review and consider alternatives that might reduce demand for jail beds. Recent improvements in the range of pretrial and sentencing options have helped to balance the local criminal justice system. Work release beds, something that we don't have now, would be restored in the proposed new facility. State policies and practices have reduced the prison population while increasing jail use. This trend is expected to continue and might even accelerate. The fifth thing the committee was charged with was to finalize future jail bed space needs and identify alternative solutions to meet jail needs. A 106-bed facility is proposed, replacing the 69-bed jail that is over 60 years old. This would allow for fluctuation in the jail population, expanded separation requirements, and implementing preventative maintenance. This will ensure that inmates may be housed without compromising classification imperatives. In addition to the long-term beds, short-term detention cells and holding areas are included. That's something that we lack now. In the proposed facility, providing efficient processing and safe detention of inmates who are released within 3 days. The jail design should allow for efficient future expansion if needed. one of the things that is being proposed is the cells themselves are going to be built big enough. They'll be single-person cells, but they'll be big enough so that if we had to, we could add a bunk to those cells and increase the population from 106 to 145 inmates, just by adding another bed to it. And then it'll also be designed so that if we have to add on in the future, we can do that as well. The committee was also charged with to evaluate solutions, including the 30-year life cycle cost projections. Although it will be less expensive in the short run to continue to patch the current jail, the risks and shortcomings are unacceptable. Renovating and expanding the facility is not feasible because of the constrained site and the condition of the current facility. There are no facilities in the community that could be cost effectively converted for jail use. We looked at the Kmart building to see if we could do something with that. The current owners want to lease it, they don't want to sell it, and that's not an option. Obviously, we want to buy it. A new facility on a new site is the most feasible long-term solution. The committee was also charged with to review potential sites. Again, the current jail is too small to accommodate the proposed jail and sheriff's facility. A 2-story facility would be required, and that would be less staff efficient. 15 sites were identified and evaluated. 2 sites were the most promising: city property on West Hamilton Road and the county's property on N32 west of the city. On August 9th, the county property was determined to be the most appropriate available site. Recently, we had a jail inspection by the Department of Corrections, and we were found not to be in compliance with some factors, which in and of itself is frustrating because some of the cells that were examined are too small to house inmates in. They are single cells, so because of the size of them, the MDOC is saying we can't, we're going to be limited on using them. We're going to have to ignore that because we just don't have the availability to not use them. We need those cells. They also looked at some of the new construction. 2 of the cells don't have any exterior windows. Inmates have the right to see natural sunlight, and because we don't have exterior windows, we were found not in compliance with this. Keep in mind that when this facility was built, when we added on these additions, we have to, by MDOC requirements, have them come in and inspect it. They came in and looked at those 2 holding cells that they said we can no longer use, and they looked at the cells that have no windows, and they approved them back when this facility was built in the 1980s. So it's somewhat frustrating that, here now they come back in and say we can no longer use those cells. I handed to you a couple of brochures. The one is one that's going out to the community, entitled Information about the Alpena County Sheriff's Office. The second one is the life expectancy of the equipment that we have. If you look at that and see quite a bit of it is then beyond its usefulness. I would be happy to answer any questions that any of you might have.
I have a couple.
Sure.
Let's start from the bottom. When MEDOC comes in and tells you can't use those cells any longer, is there, and you use them, what happens?
They're not going to shut us down, so they can't do that. I think the biggest thing that happens is we're at a greater risk of liability. So once the information gets out and the community finds out, or some individuals find out that they're still using them, it really increases the liability that we have in the county.
Can you negate the windows not being there by like letting them go to the gym because there's a window in there for more time during the day?
No.
No. Okay.
We can't do that either.
Okay.
We're still required to
Okay.
and their cells are required to see natural sunlight.
All the time.
All the time.
Okay. Thank you. You talked in the very beginning about the inmate population, and you touched a little bit on women and what happens and how you can immediately lose beds that
Right.
are available. But Also, in the population, you have people at risk, people with mental health issues.
Yes.
They're people that we've never, or you've never had to deal with in the quantity that you have to deal with now. And that causes an issue in the jail. And you have no safe place to keep them other than to put them in a cell, just like you would if women were fighting and you had to separate them. And that takes away from bed space too.
Correct.
Correct.
And if I may add on to that, the cells that we use mostly for those individuals, unfortunately, are the cells that the MDOC says are too small for individuals. And I think in some ways we enhance to some degree, the mental health illness that these people suffer, because when they're in those particular cells, excuse me, the lights are on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They never go off.
I do think we, as a society, we need to find a better way to deal with people with mental health issues rather than to pass the burden off onto our police officers. But that's a whole different issue.
The jail is getting more and more of those as well.
Right.
We're seeing more and more individuals with mental health illnesses being incarcerated. They don't belong in jail.
No, they don't.
We work well with the Northeast Michigan Mental Health Services here, and we try to divert as many of those individuals as we possibly can.
And we talked, and you touched a little bit on safety of staff because, and inmates too, because of the corners in the current jail. And those would be eliminated in a new facility.
Right. So the construction that we're looking at is a pod construction type facility, so that in the middle there's a center hub basically, and around that center hub are all the cells, and the corrections officers will be able to look out windows and see whatever activity is taking place in all the cells. Right now we can't do that. We have cameras, but cameras basically record any fights or anything else that's taking place. They don't replace a human.
And even though everyone would have their own cell, and in a new facility, there will still be common areas where they can get out and
Right.
do.
So what we're looking at right now is a tier, basically, another. It's not really a second floor, but in that area would be all the cells. The inmates would be able to have their own beds at this point in time. And then there will be a day room. So at night, they come out of their cells, or out of their cells and come down into the day room. That makes it a lot better for my staff. It makes the inmates a lot easier to control. As it is right now, everybody sleeps in one room, and there are people who snore and talk in their sleep and everything else like that, and that causes issues and frictions with the inmates that my staff have to go back and deal with. Recently, we've had a couple of nasty fights over stupid issues back in the jail. One of them was the individual being able to sleep because of the noise the other one was making, and another one because they're supposed to take turns cleaning their cells, and oftentimes they don't do that. That creates friction as well. Right now, and I'm sorry.
No.
Right now, what we have with our inmates is we've got a lot of inmates that are basically in our facility and are doing nothing. One of the things that I'm most proud of about this committee is not only are they looking at the jail and potential for a new jail, but what do we do with these inmates? They're sitting, they're basically not doing anything, and we'd like to change that. So some of the things that we're looking at some point in time in the future is we have the recycling center or the transfer station that would like to take some of the inmates out of the facility, teach them work ethics. I think that's a fantastic idea. We've got a lot of inmates in the jail right now that are unemployed and really don't have good work ethics. So I think that's a great idea. I'm also really interested in, you see it in prisons where the county now has an animal control officer, and prisons are now allowing inmates to train dogs. I would be really interested in doing that. It does an awful lot of good for the inmates to have the animals in there. And anytime that I've done any research on that, there's a lot of positive things as a result of that. So we need to do something with the inmates so they're not sitting around idle all the time. Let's do something and make them productive.
That was one of my questions, but that's okay. And no, one that affects the city. Because of the location of the new facility, it'll take city officers off the road for longer periods of time. And have we come up with a plan, or is there a plan to help get them back to the city as quickly as possible?
Yeah, we need to be real sensitive about that. We really do. So one of the things that we're looking at right now is, with the new facility, we'll hire an additional 8 corrections officers. What we're looking at doing right now is currently when city PD, MSP, or even my deputies arrest someone and bring them into the facility, they have to wait while the individual's being booked. And that's ridiculous. We need to get these people back out on the road as quickly as possible so they can do their job. So what we're looking at now with the additional 8 people and the design of the building itself, we'll be able to, the city police officers will be able to, all law enforcement will be able to bring in those inmates, drop them off, and get out. My corrections officers can take over from there. We've implemented a program right now that's basically a pre-arrest sheet that we're asking the officers to fill out, which will hopefully expedite the booking process. That's working okay. We need to do a better job on that. So once we get moving with this, I think you'll see a quicker turnaround, and the officers will get out of the jail that much quicker. One of the things, Chief Jett and I are like brothers. We have a really good relationship, and I'm not going to do anything put his office or any of his officers in jeopardy, or the community, the city of Alpena as well. I pledge to you, I pledge to Chief Jett, that we will work on that issue so that we can get the city police officers into the facility and get them out as quickly as possible so they're not tied up.
Thank you. Those were all my questions.
And all of mine as well.
Sorry.
I do have one. Do you have any kind of an educational program at the jail? I know a lot of the inmates there could benefit.
Depends on funding. In the past, we didn't have GED. We used to have GED in the past with community corrections. When community corrections went away with the changes in the state through the Department of Corrections, the funding for GED went away. I'm happy to tell you that GED is coming back. We're working with Tawas right now, the ESD down in Tawas, who will be providing it for not only us, but several jails in the area. Community Corrections is back. We're getting some funding back from the state in regards to that, and GED is one of those programs. And you're right, we have a lot of inmates. We have a lot of young inmates in our facility right now who don't have high school education, haven't finished, and we need to fix that because it's extremely difficult, as everybody knows, to find a job with help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's the average length of stay for your inmates?
It really depends on the charges. I would like to tell you that it's under a year. In most cases, that is the situation. But with a lot of the felonies that we're coming into the facility right now, we're seeing that those individuals are staying a lot longer. Our average daily population is about 55 inmates, but that fluctuates depending on what's going on. Again, you heard me say that we had to declare an overcrowding, and we had to release some inmates and get them down. And that's been a while since we've had to do that.
How many protective custody cells will be in the new facility compared to what you have now?
Well, it's 106 beds. We really haven't looked at what the custody levels are going to be right now. In fact, one of the things we got gigged on by the Department of Corrections is we have maximum security, we have medium security, and we have minimum security inmates. Maximum security inmates we have to keep away from everybody. They have to have their own cells. Right now, we have 2 cells full of maximum security inmates. We at one time were able to house the medium and the minimum together. We got gigged on that with the Department of Corrections. We can't minimum's got to be with minimum, medium's got to be with medium, maximum has to be with maximum. Because of the jail and the cells that we have right now, we can't do that. We have to house the minimum and the medium together.
And has your committee taken a look at what you would do at the old facility, or is that more in the county's hands?
We have, more than likely it would be sold as is. We're not going to get an awful lot of money for it, but it more than likely would be sold as is, and it'd be up to the whomever buys it to raise it or do whatever they want to it.
Thank you.
Sheriff, thanks for coming, giving your presentation. I got just a couple of things. I wasn't involved in the committee at all, so I was just wondering if you could walk me through the process of choosing a location. You mentioned Kmart, you mentioned the city's property on US 23, and then this property, but walk me through, if you can,
Sure.
how that process worked, how
Sure.
things were eliminated and chosen.
So what we looked at, we initially looked at 15 different sites all over the county itself. We looked at a site next to the Knights of Columbus Hall and the acreage associated with that one. There wasn't enough acreage there. We're looking at anywhere from 10 to 15 acres of land, not only for us. The facility that we're proposing will also have a pole barn so we can store all of our equipment together. We looked at a place on French Road. There's no infrastructure on French Road, no sewer or water or anything else like that. And I'm familiar with the location that was proposed. The problem with that area is that in the wintertime there's an awful lot of wetlands in that area, and I don't think that's, in fact, I think it's owned by the Downtown Development Authority. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that property's got 30-some acres out there that we looked at.
I think it's
That's correct. You're right. Thank you.
Target?
I think it may be Target, not the DDA.
Thank you. It is Target. Thank you. We also looked at properties that we talked about because of the move with Thunder Bay Transportation. Corral's lot was supposedly available as well. We looked at that, but we were concerned with any soil contamination in that area, so we eliminated that. We looked pretty heavily at Kmart. I thought Kmart would be an ideal location for the size of it. Because, I was envisioning it to the north of Kmart, building the jail itself to incarcerate the inmates. And Kmart is big enough for us to eventually move the whole court systems into that building. Ideally, that's what I'd like to do is have all the courts and the jail together, because right now we're tying up deputies to transport inmates back and forth to court. It'd be nice to have my correction staff walk the inmates back and forth, and my deputies could be out on the road enforcing the laws. We looked at several other sites. We looked at the site on Hamilton Road as well, and the committee narrowed it down to 2 sites. Hamilton Road was looked at, and we looked at the costs associated with purchasing the land, costs of the infrastructure as well, and some other factors of the stone and stuff that in that area, which was a concern about whether or not we'd be able to adequately build without additional cost in that area. We looked at the airport site as well and considered that. Initially, it was right off of Airport Road, but because of problems that we might have with the Federal Aviation Administration, we decided that wasn't a good location, so we looked at the site on east of the airport. That site is 5/10 of a mile west of Sportsman's Road, Sportsman's Drive, and 8/10 of a mile east of Airport Road on the north side. Infrastructure is there. The infrastructure, sewer and water, is on the south side of the road. Fiber optics and everything else is on the north side of the road. Mayor, one of the things that I'm displeased with is the fact that we were told right along that one of the things that we had to do was make a decision, and we had to make a decision quickly. That came from our just came from sources that we had to make a decision, and that decision had to be made within a very short period of time. I'm not pleased with that decision because, quite honestly, Mayor, it made me look bad. Because the site was, the site we had to make a decision on. We were looking at the city property. It was going to cost us close to $1 million. The site on to do everything that we needed to do at the city location. We looked at the site at airport with all the sand and everything else in there. We were told a decision had to be made by the 15th before the county approved the bond language. It was rushed. That portion of it was rushed. I'm not pleased with that portion of it. It is what it is. We need a decision at that point in time to go with the site on M32 at the location that I've previously cited. One of the things that after that took place and a quick decision was made, I made contact with Mr. Sundin, Councilwoman Johnson here, and told them what was going on and why it had to be made. I later found out that that didn't have to happen. It's unfortunate. It made me look bad, Mayor, but it is what it is.
No, I appreciate that. And it was, because for me, for asking, because the location is pretty important.
Understood.
Extremely important. And not just to the city. I don't want to give anybody the impression that this is just on the city, because your officers, as you stated, are going to have to transport those, their inmates to the court system as well. So I was just kind of asking of how that, how it was determined. And you mentioned, of course, we've talked every community talks about putting all those entities in the same place. Some get to, some don't. In mentioning that, is there any foresight, and are the commissioners or the committee, did they look into the future as far as bringing some of the other facilities out to that location, or is that location not going to be able to facilitate that, and we'll keep them separated? Is that?
No, there's plenty of property at that location for that to happen at some point in time in the future.
Okay.
Mayor, I don't have a glass ball, and I can't tell you when that's going to happen.
Right.
I hope like heck that that's going to happen, because obviously it'll make things a lot easier for myself and my staff as well. I'm trying to remember some of the things that you said, so I apologize. The committee did look at some of that stuff. I lost my train of thought. I apologize.
I was just asking about the other facilities being moved into there in the future.
Yeah, at some point in time, that's what we're hoping will happen. That'll be up to future commissioners and have to decide. If you look at some of the courts, the district court entries right now, front of the court, those buildings are in bad shape. Circuit court is in pretty decent shape at this point in time, but the other buildings are starting to get real bad. And the majority of our work, quite honestly, Mayor, is with the district court. That's where we transport all of our people for arraignments. We do video arraignments quite a bit. If there's preliminary hearings that have to be held before the individual goes to circuit court, we do a lot of our work with district court. So we're hoping that eventually, at some point in time, district court will move over, and then eventually, at some point in time, the circuit court as well.
Okay.
Sure. Howard Lumsden, the point he's looking for is you need to answer Howard Lumsden. You know what I'm talking about? The ambulance?
Not at this point. Yeah, right.
And I had another question just out of curiosity, because you had a consultant, and so I wondered, did at any time, did they give you an average ratio of where your prisoners are coming from, or who's booking your prisoners? The county, the MSP, and the city, is there a number that?
There is a number. The numbers that we looked at over the years, the city arrests less than one person per day. So it's not like they would be transporting inmates every day to the sheriff's office or to the jail. The same holds true for us. We arrest less than one person per day. I do have those numbers. I apologize I didn't bring them to you, but I'd be happy to send them to you at some point in time. MSP, by far, arrests quite a high number. I think last year their numbers were in the 400 range. City was in the 200 range, and ours was in the 200 range.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious, and I kind of threw it at you without.
It's a good question,
knowing,
sir.
so.
It's a good question.
I appreciate you fielding our questions.
I appreciate the
I don't know
time.
if anyone else has anything. Thanks again.
Sheriff, October 5th, you own that. October 5th.
Help me out here, Craig.
Jail tour.
Oh, yeah, every Thursday now, we're starting jail tours as well, so that's
I read
being
that.
published. So at any point in time, any of you want to come and tour the jail, I would encourage you to do that.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, boys. That's all we have.
I move we adjourn.
Second.